Guitar Collector Guy presents part 1 of building out a Fender USA Telecaster. This is building a 3-position Telecaster wiring harness. So there's 3 ways that you can do this. One, you can already buy a pre-built wiring harness, and there's a lot of choices out there and good companies that are manufacturing them. 2, you can buy a parts kit like I did, or 3, you can actually buy all the components separately. A lot of times I've bought them pre-made, but that's almost double the price. They can go anywhere from $60 on up. The kits using quality components are about 30 plus. And the components, to be honest with you, these days are costing almost the same thing as the kits. So unless you're buying in bulk, it doesn't really make sense to buy the components. I just buy the kits at this point. Art of Tone makes really great pre-made kits, and they contain basically all of the top line parts that you would buy if you were building basically a top-of-the-line custom wiring harness. And so here's a list of the components that came with my kit, and it was really reasonable. I mean, it was like $31, $32. This kit is the Telecaster standard wiring, which is what Fender was producing after 1967. It's a 3-position switch, where switch position 1, which is back towards the bridge, is the bridge pickup alone with tone control. Switch 2, our middle position 2, which is in the middle, is both pickups together in parallel. And then selector switch position number 3, which is all the way forward, is the neck pickup with tone control. This is a great kit. The only complaint that I have is the wiring diagram, which I have up on the screen right now that I actually scanned in. Some of it was actually unreadable. The 3 green lines I actually had to draw in, primarily because the white, it just wasn't there. And so I ended up finding another exact replica of the circuit online, and that's what I actually used in the video here, and so on. So the only complaint I have basically with this kit is the wiring diagram, but you can find plenty of the standard wiring on the internet that'll help you put it together. So I unbagged the kit and made sure I had all of the components that I need. They were all there. And I basically started putting it together. I actually have this template from a pre-made wiring harness that I had bought a long time ago that I hang on to, and I actually use it for projects like this because it's just easier to use it than actually using the control cover to do this. You just have more surface and so on, and you'll see it here in a minute as I'm done setting up the control pots to put onto the template. So the kit comes with 2 CTS 250K pots with 3 conductors, a 47 microfarad capacitor, and a 3-position switch, and then the input jack, and then all the necessary hardware. Also includes the little top hat Telecaster control. You can see here's a little wood template that I have. So you install both of the controls, the CTS 250K pots, into the board, and have the conductors on the back facing each other, just like in the diagram. When you're done, basically the end product should look just like the diagram. You really don't have to know anything about electronics. All you have to have is some basic mechanical skills and some soldering skills to do this. The only thing that I found that was difficult to use with this, and it's just a preference, later when Fender was producing these circuits, they actually used braided wire, and this kit holds true to the original how they were actually produced, and it has basically a solid core wire that has a fabric coating, on the outside. And I find it's just kind of difficult for me to use. I have to build 2 more of these for 2 other projects that I have going. And I've actually ordered some 22 gauge wire, red and black, and I'm going to use the fabric coated solid core for basically all the ground lines. And then I'm going to use the 22 gauge braided wire, red and black, for the rest of the wiring. It's just easier, like when you're doing little tiny pieces of wire on like the 3-position switch and stuff like that. I just find it's kind of hard to move and flex and and so on with the wire. So one of the ways that I set this video up is I took the diagram and I basically set up 11 steps. If you like this video, please click on like, subscribe, and notify. So I decided to kind of make this easy to follow along with, and I took the easy to read diagram and I broke this down in the video into 11 different steps. So this is the diagram showing each of the 11 steps. And the way I'll show you throughout the video is I'll actually just show the diagram with the specific step associated with that step in the video. Step 1. So in this step, I'm going to take and install the 47 microfarad capacitor. And you can see the one on the capacitor up there with the top pot on the volume control and the middle pot on the tone control. The other thing that they have in this diagram that I do is you bend the top on the volume control in, because you're also going to want to solder that to the top of the 250K pot. So here's the capacitor. I have, the way I installed it is I put the printed side of the capacitor facing up to me, and you can see that I've already bent the top of the control to the left, and I am now feeding the left leg of the capacitor through the conductor, and then I'm going to do the same thing, feeding the other leg of the capacitor through the middle of the other control. Once I get it situated in, I bend the legs up, and then I get ready to solder the legs into the conductors on the 250K controls. I'm just looking at the diagram, making sure that I'm doing everything right. So it was kind of cold in the workshop today, and so normally I would have had the soldering iron, if you have a variable temperature soldering iron, about 320 to 350 degrees. I ended up having to take it up a little bit hotter just because it was literally like 45 degrees where I was working, which is probably not optimum for doing soldering. Here you see that I've soldered the post of the capacitor, and now I'm soldering the actual contact of the switch, or the 250K pot, to the back of it, so it's grounded to it. And now I'm going to take my cutters and cut off the excess wire or legs of the capacitor. Step 2. So in this step 2, I basically am going to take a long white wire and go from the center conductor of the 250K volume pot, and this is going to be going to the tip of our on the output jack. So here you see me measuring off 2 equal lengths of ground and white wires, so black and white wire, and I cut them off, and then I prep the ends, and this is what I'm going to use as my 2 wires that are going to go ultimately to the input jack for the guitar. I'm not going to put the input jack on now because you have to feed it through a hole and on the guitar body itself and have it, come out, and then you solder it onto the output jack and then you screw that in place. So here you can see me feeding the white wire into the center conductor of the volume control, and then I solder it in place. And that's all I have to do for step 2. Step 3. In step 3, I'm making sure that the top conductor on the volume pot is actually soldered properly to the back of the 250K pot, and there's enough solder then for me to connect the long black wire that I just created that's ultimately going to go to the ring on the output jack. Step 4. In step 4, I solder the long black wire from the back of the volume 250K pot to, and I'm not, again, connect it to the output jack yet. I'm just going to leave it hanging for now. Step 5. In step 5, I'm going to put a kind of a blob of solder on the back of the 250K volume pot. Ultimately, there are going to be 3 things that are attached to this. The black wires from both of the pickups and the ground wire that's ultimately going to be fed through the body and will sit underneath the bridge. And this, I'm putting the solder on the back, and then I'm actually attaching the black ground wire that I've created. Step 6. In step 6, I'm going to run a short wire between the lower post on both the tone and the volume controls, as shown in the diagram above. Step 7. In step 7, I'm going to run a short wire that goes from the bottom contact of the volume 250K pot and run that over to the first contact at the top on the three-way switch as shown above in the diagram. Step 8. Now I'm going to run on the three-way switch a very short wire between the first and the second contacts on the top. And this is where it gets kind of difficult to use the wire that was supplied, and it'd probably be easier to use like a 22 gauge braided wire. Step 9. In step 9, you're going to run a very short jumper between two contacts on the three-way switch. From the top, it would be from the second end from the right, and the bottom, second end from the left, just as you see it in the diagram above. Step 10. Step 10, you're going to also put a little jumper on the three-way switch, and it's going to be on the bottom row, and it's as 10 is showing above in the diagram, and it's going to be from the first to the left to the second to the left. Step 11. In step 11, I'm going to run a ground short black wire, just like the diagram, from the volume back of the pot to the tone back of the pot. Review your work. So now you've completed all the steps except for installing the output jack, the neck, and bridge pickups. And it's good measure to sit down and basically look at all your work and compare it to the diagram and make sure that you've done everything the way the diagram shows you to do. So there's the completed job. I could do a better job with, I've said this again, at least on the switch control with braided wire. It'd be probably prettier. And I guarantee this will work. And next step in this project now is I will actually install this in the body for the Telecaster that I'm building and start assembling the Telecaster. Thank you very much for viewing our video. We really appreciate it. We like taking you along on these journeys with us. And again, thanks for being here. If you like this video, please click on like, subscribe, and notify.